All right, good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming and welcome. My name is Matt Peterson. I'm a Public Information Officer with Rocky Mountain Complex Incident Management Team 1. Before we get started, we'd like to remind everyone to silence your cell phone so we don't disturb anyone around you. The purpose of tonight's meeting is for fire managers and local officials to talk about fire activity and suppression efforts on the Stoner Mesa fire. We'll start the evening with words from representatives of the San Juan National Forest, the Colorado Division of Fire Prevention and Control, and the sheriffs from Montezuma and Dolores counties. Then we'll get updates on the fire activity and suppression operations. We'll hear from the incident meteorologist, the air resource advisor, a fire behavior analyst, and we'll close with words from the incident commander. Before I introduce our first speaker, we ask that you hold your questions until the end. There's a good chance we'll answer your question throughout the presentations, and if we don't, we'll all be sticking around afterwards, and you'll be able to come up and ask us face-to-face for any questions that are left. For our audience online, you're welcome to send questions directly over through private messaging on Facebook or our email. We'll have staff standing by ready to respond. And if we have technical difficulties, just know that we are recording this, and so we'll be able to post the recording afterwards if you miss anything. So with that, again, just want to thank you for coming tonight, and now I'd like to introduce Nick Musto from the San Juan National Forest for opening remarks.
Hey, good evening, everyone. I'm certainly glad to be with you this evening. Nick Musto, Dolores District Ranger for the San Juan National Forest. Happy to share that our firefighters on the ground have made good progress on the Stoner Mesa fire. We'll have our operations folks up here in a little bit sharing what those folks have been up to for the last several days. I think it's important that everybody knows that our priority on this incident has been, is, and will continue to be protecting homes, protecting private property. It's really been the focus on this incident from the beginning, continues to be our focus. I know that in Dolores, what we've seen from this fire is kind of smoky conditions in the morning. I'll say as someone who doesn't have air conditioning, I'm keenly aware of how smoky it's been, though it's been a little better the last couple days. We do have our air resource advisor that can kind of talk a little bit more about smoke on the incident. Also can't stand up here without expressing a whole bunch of gratitude and saying a whole bunch of thanks, starting with the fire departments. From Dolores to Rico to West Fork, they've been invaluable to everything we're doing. They've been a wonderful connection to the community. They've opened their doors for community meetings, and really, we would not be where we are without the local fire departments, so certainly much thanks to all those departments. Similarly, I'll say that I've worked across the West, and I feel very confident in saying that we are well served here in Montezuma and Dolores counties with our partners at the local, at the counties level, at the state, and the federal level. All of those folks are really dedicated to the communities that they serve each and every day. Could not be where we are without our partners at all those different levels. I would also say just that one of my tasks, having Rocky Mountain Team 1 here, is to convince each and every one of them that the residents of Montezuma and Dolores County are nicer than average, that we've got kind folks that call this place home. I think I've convinced the entire team. I still have 2 days left before they kind of head out, but certainly we have seen and appreciate the support that we've gotten from the community. So thank you to the community for that. I'll say that this incident isn't the first challenging situation I've had as the Dolores District Ranger, but I'll say that I leave every challenging situation here feeling deeply in debt and gratitude towards the communities that I get to serve in this role. So thank you for the community, for sure. And with that, I'll give it around after for questions, and thank you all for coming out on a Sunday evening. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Nick. My name's Logan Davis. I work for the Colorado Division of Fire Prevention and Control. I'm the local regional battalion chief, as well as I'm working with the Stoner Mesa incident as an agency administrator, representing both Montezuma and Dolores counties. That way the sheriffs have some more free time to focus on the rest of the sheriff's department operations. I didn't really have anything prepared to talk to you about today, but I thought it would be important to highlight how important the relationships are in Southwest Colorado, not only in our community in Dolores, but across the Southwest. I have the privilege of working from Pagosa all the way over to here to Cortez in Montezuma County. And across this region, there's a realization that there's a lot of small communities with strong independence, but without supporting each other, we limit ourselves in what we can accomplish. And that's really apparent in larger incidents such as the Stoner Mesa fire. There's been collaboration and support and cooperation from fire departments in Dolores County, Rico, West Fork, all the fire departments within Montezuma County, 2 sheriff's departments, the Forest Service, the BLM, and with the complex incident management team, there's support that's come here to support us in our local community from all across the United States, which is fantastic, and I'm really appreciative of all the folks on the incident management team for supporting us here in our local community. And thank you to the community for providing them all of the resources we have for them to be successful. And the signs on the side of the road, thank you firefighters, those don't go unnoticed. And I wanted to extend a thank you on behalf of the firefighters for being appreciative of their work and supporting them. And as we work towards containment of the Stoner Mesa fire, let's not let this wear on us as a community too hard. I know the smoky mornings and the hot afternoons are tough to deal with, but we can be appreciative of the rains and the moderating weather conditions that we'll hear more about soon. And with that, thank you all, and I look forward to engaging you with any questions and happy to have any discussions with you after the meeting. Thank you.
There isn't a painted box this time. Wow, that's good. I can move around. Good evening, everybody. I'm Sheriff Steve Nellen here in Montezuma County. I'm your sheriff, and also by statute, I'm the fire warden in the county. Ever since this started, I've been constantly watching it and in contact with the Forest Service and people on the ground. I don't know who it was that actually did the proper rain dance yesterday, but you're my next best friend, okay? So thank you. And unfortunately, like I explained to the incident command staff with the Type 1 fire team, with the Forest Service and others, this is not our only fire. And it was at a time, but unfortunately yesterday we had 6 lightning strike fires. As I was coming down here, there was another one out by Pleasant View. This is going to happen with these thunderstorms, and I'm concerned about keeping control of this and putting it out. That's the most important thing. The other thing is that any pre-evacuation orders that go out or evacuation notices and orders that go out will come from me for people in Montezuma County, not anybody else. That information is on the Sheriff's Office website, as well as will be put on our Facebook page and through the mobile app. But the only ones that I have given pre-evacuation notice for is for County Road 38 in Montezuma County from the West Fork to the county line, which is where the old Emerson picnic ground was at, right? East up the river through County Road 38.5, which is just past the West Fork turnoff. Everything is going to be on the north side of 145. Stoner RV Park and the residents that have property within Stoner Creek and the 26,000 block of Highway 145, which would be right pretty much across from where the Stoner ranch is at. I think there's a couple of the residents here that were given that. That was several weeks ago. I have not lifted that just because this fire is still burning. And as you look on the map and whatnot, I wish it was up here, but you'll see that, oh, it is. See, look at that. All I have to do is ask. This is great. So this is where the majority of the burning and the fire is at. And here's the county line. And this hotspot started several days ago, all right? And I know that I already apologized to the IC team. It's like, I want that out, okay? This should not be red, okay? But with the rains and whatnot, it actually has helped, and they'll explain that to you, that it has. But, so it was from the West Fork here, Stoner, and just the residents here below the cliffs. Those are the only ones that have received pre-evacuation notices, just because in case this fire does have a life of its own and start to grow, I want to make sure that there's contingency lines about pre-evacuation lines that I've met with the fire operators and whatnot, that I want to know exactly where this fire's at, okay? When it reaches that, then there will be evacuation notices from wherever this fire comes down and hits those points, okay? Not unlike what it was with the plateau fire that we had several years ago, if you remember that, okay? And then evacuation will only happen if it crosses that and gets into those areas that I have marked as those are the evacuation notices. So between pre-evacuation and evacuation, you're going to have, those folks are going to have anywhere from 24 to 36 hours, if not more, okay? Plenty of time. But I do not foresee that happening. I don't. I really don't. You're going to be all okay, other than the smoke, and I'm sorry, okay? I can't control that, neither can they, all right? It just depends on the winds and whatnot and the weather. But I will be around, and if you want to talk with me later, I'll be more than happy to, but I'm going to not waste any more time, and I'll turn it over to the Dolores County Sheriff, which is where most of this started, and it's his fault, so, okay?
Appreciate that. Thank you. My name's Don Wilson, Dolores County Sheriff. The fire did start quite a few weeks ago, and as you can tell, it keeps on growing on us. Hopefully the firefighters are going to put the stuff out. We've asked them to several times, but for some reason it's just not doable when the terrain is straight up and down. They are doing the best they can. We have an alert system. You may be getting an alert on your cell phones or maybe even your home phones. You may get that alert. I utilize my emergency manager to do that because I'm not a computer literate person, and so I make sure that my emergency manager pushes those messages out. There may be a disruption in your life for a little bit if we have to evacuate Rico to bring them down through here. It might disrupt you just a little bit, but it won't be a permanent thing. We're trying to make sure if we have, hopefully we don't have to evacuate anyone, even from the West Fork area. They can go one of two ways, either to Telluride or to Montezuma County. And they're doing the best they can, and I'm not a firefighter, therefore we have DFPC, which is our state firefighters, helping us with the coordination of all this information that I have no clue. When a firefighter talks about fires, I have no clue. All I know is it burns and it needs to put out. I'll be around if you have any more questions. I'll be around. That's all I have.
Thanks, Sheriff. So we're going to transition now to hearing from members of the incident management team. And so if we could go ahead and dim the lights.
All right, good evening, everybody. I appreciate the dim lights. I have a face for radio, so now you guys won't have to look at me. You can look at the map. So we'll kind of cover some of the status of the fire, where things are sitting right now. I also will be here after. We've got some additional maps on the walls over here that have additional detail on them. So if folks have very poignant and specific questions to drainages, to locality to private property, things like that, I'll happily answer those. What I'm going to kind of do is a general overview, and if we have additional stuff, we'll happily cover that. So one of the things I like to start with, depending on where you're at, different folks are used to fire or not. So even if there's one person in here that doesn't understand how we break these fires out, I like to cover that because it's important, because that's how I'm going to speak to on what's going on out on the fire. So I'll get started here. So we break, often if they're large enough, we break them into branches. So if you see up here, we've got branch 2, and way down to the south, we have branch 5. So what that's doing for us is it's essentially breaking this fire in half. So we've got the Stoner Creek drainage in there. I mean, you folks are local, you know how steep that is. It's not just a creek, it's a canyon. So we separated this fire into 2 halves because travel between the south and the north, not an easy thing to do. So we kind of organize it that way. So within those branches, we have divisions. So as you see around the map, we have numerals posted up here: X-ray or alphanumerics, Alpha, Echo, Tango, and Whiskey. Also within there, we have groups to make it even more confusing. Groups are groups of resources that operate within these areas. So one group, as an example, for this fire would be the structure group. So there are structures all the way around that are in multiple divisions and multiple branches. So we have that group. They're organized in such a way that they don't have necessarily a very specific piece of ground under a division that they work. They may cross those boundaries. And so hopefully that makes sense. That's why we break that stuff up. It's all under the incident command system for us, and it helps break those things down so folks know who they're working for, who's in charge of what. When you come into this area, who are you working for as a firefighter? So that's kind of how we break stuff down. So now I'll get started on kind of going around the map and talk about some specific items out on the fire. I'm going to start in branch 2 with Division Echo. So Division Echo is some of the stuff in what I've been calling the upper Stoner Creek area of the fire along the drainage here. So that area, very steep, rugged. Quite some time ago, we put a number of folks in here looking at this ground. What can we do in here? So that is right on Stoner Creek itself. Extremely steep, quite a ways back in there. For folks that have been in here and the upper end of here, I mean, it's if you drop a water bottle, it's going to the creek type of area. So extremely steep. So we made some choices in there on not a good place to put firefighters. The only way we were going to get them out of there was via helicopter. So if someone got hit by a snag, falling debris, a rock, things like that, just was not a really good place to put folks. Some of our, what I would call smarter firefighters in the group, did some modeling as well of what are the possibilities of fire moving to the north. And some of those decisions were based on that. So probability of success and risk to responders and the public is kind of what that determination was based on. As we move a little bit further east, we get into Division Alpha. So one thing I want to touch on, so we changed from red to black. Well, what does that really mean? What does that mean when you see that on a fire map? So red, obviously fire's edge. That's pretty straightforward. But black is containment. So one thing even firefighters get confused about on containment is what does that really mean? So we see that, it's like, hey, this part is out. Not necessarily. That is not necessarily what containment means. So containment means that portion of the fire, so we can just use this kind of north east side as an example, that has black on the map. So that means it has a containment line on the fire. So that could be, a road, could be a trail, could be a lake, a river, or hand line constructed by a crew, dozer line constructed by equipment, things like that. So one thing to just, to really be aware of is when you see that on a map, there is no direct correlation between containment and a fire being out. So that can often get confused of, hey, they've got that line on there and that must be a good thing. Well, it is definitely a good thing, but there could be a lot of heat along those edges and things like that. So just something for the future as well. Obviously applies to this incident, but those definitions are important for what that means out there. Containment's expressed as a percentage of the perimeter of the fire. So sometimes folks get that a little mixed up of like, well, that part must be out. It's like, no, we just got containment on it. There's a ton of mop up in there that's left. Burning logs, stumps, all sorts of things like that. So just wanted to kind of touch on that so folks are aware there. So we'll kind of get back to some descriptions on the fire area. So from approximately, right in here over to right around we come around this area. I mean, this map is tough. So anyone that has some specific questions after, please hit me up. In Division Alpha here, a lot of this is hung up on trails. Through this trail system up here, right along the trail, they were able to hold the fire's edge on that, and dozer line connecting around to the top, back up on what I would call Stoner Mesa proper, right on top of the mesa. You're not in the canyon there. A good place to catch fire, not on a steep slope. It's on the flat. So through there, that's been a ton of work. That's where there's a lot of conifer in there. A lot of the dead and down that we see in areas of the forest in there. So there was a ton of work in there. Pretty limited access. That's all on foot. There's no road in there. So that's taken quite some time for those folks to get that really secured. Moving further down, we have basically right around, I'll call it a thumb, I guess, right here. Coming all the way down is Division X-ray. So in that portion, there's the Stoner Mesa Trail in there. So whenever possible, they utilize the trail itself because there's spots it's quite wide. There's no vegetation on it, things like that. And where necessary, they utilize dozer lines to come down through there and bring that dozer line all the way down. And I'll describe a little bit more detail down there further down. But they did have to utilize some burnout operations through there as well to secure that, because what was happening is the stuff in the canyon would kind of burn down the canyon and make runs towards the line, and so they were getting spots over the top that they were having to catch, things like that with hand crews, the dozer, and things like that to be able to secure that. So moving past in Division X-ray, what they did in here is there's numerous lines on the map, but we've got what we call a primary strategic line that comes down the Stoner Mesa Trail, leaves the top, comes down, and we've got a chunk of hand line that comes in right at the very end of the Stoner Creek community subdivision, that private land in there. So what that's doing for us is, as we talk, Stoner Creek drainage, extremely steep. It's been mentioned by some of the sheriffs and things like that of, we want to put that out. But I personally have walked some of this. I've walked some of these ridges. How close can we get to this thing with people and equipment? And once again, we're in that realm of probability of success and risk to firefighters. And where are we at on that scale? And in this country, probability of success low, probability to get someone hurt much higher. Extremely steep, lots of that mixed conifer with dead trees, snags falling, things like that. So that's where some of these additional lines come in. So this piece here, that was a great success on the half of the firefighters. It took some time to find that. That was done all by hand. Could not get equipment in there. That's a lot of work. I walked that ridge myself. It's steep. It's manageable, and so that's was the decision where we put that line. Moving further down on the continuation on the Stoner Mesa itself, we have additional dozer line that comes all the way down to the very tip of the mesa. And actually just today we got hand line punched in right here. So those folks that are familiar, right before you get to the RV park, there's kind of a corral set that's right there off the side of the road. So once again, all by hand, no equipment. 3 hotshot crews put that in today all the way to the top and got that in place. So if something were to occur to where this doesn't work, we can isolate that there and be able to do something in there. So that was a great step today. Got some rain this afternoon, which is also an additional help that we've got smart folks behind me that can talk about that. But we got that in before it rained on them again. As well. So a great deal there. Moving around a little bit further into Division Whiskey here, We've got a primary strategic line. There's the loading pen trail right off the highway there. So utilized hand crews. They've got a tiny bit of work left in there. Once again, the rain kind of ran folks off the hill. It's steep and rocky in there. When it gets wet, not a great place to run a chainsaw on a steep slope type of a deal. You know, maybe not a good time to be in there. So we got a little bit of work left in there still. And then where the loading pen trail turns into the 201. So up that 201 road, we've got what we would call an indirect. It's our primary strategic line, but it is indirect. It's not on the main fire edge, utilizing heavy equipment to create that fire line in there. Getting a lot of those conifer and snags out of there with equipment, it's a much faster, safer method to do that versus having folks out there with chainsaws trying to drop all that stuff and pick it up, move it. Utilize heavy equipment to place that in. Further out, it's probably tough to see, but here's some additional line on here, a mix of dozer line and masticator. So basically an excavator with a big drum head with teeth on it that grinds stuff up to make it simple. So that can help take the fuels out of the ladder fuels out of the canopy and put them on the ground, which is a lot easier to deal with than if they're up in the air for us. So a ton of work was done in there as well to get that all connected. So, yep, talked about that spot. That was also looked at as well. We had folks in there, tried to see if we could do anything. This map does not do it justice on what we would call an extremely dirty burn, to where we don't have like a very smooth black edge from the fire to pick up and put out. It's, you know, folks sitting in the room, you're all hot spots that have to be gone after individually. Takes an extreme amount of time to circle those individual pieces. You're surrounded by snags, things like that on a steep slope. So it really wasn't a good option. And so that's where this kind of line came into that picture itself. Moving a little bit further out to the east, we've got Division Tango, and a lot of times our stuff's way out there because, well, we've got a lot of stuff going on in here as well, but in this case we'll talk about specifically about the fire's edge. So through Tango and the edge of Whiskey, all the way from approximately right here, all the way out to the very end of the road, we're at the fire's edge dives down into Stoner Creek again. That stuff is looking really good. Again, back on a mesa, it's flatter. There's been some, historical logging and current logging operations up in there that have helped out significantly. They were able to utilize current roads and or old skid roads from logging that really helped them get around this piece. So same thing occurred here where, there's containment line on the map, but a lot of heavy fuels in there that they had to deal with, mop up and things like that. And for folks that know this mesa, where's the water? It's not right here. So all that water is getting hauled from the bottom and brought up to the top to be able to mop up and actually put the fire out. So a bit of extra work thrown in there. Sometimes you get lucky and there's a small lake, a pond, a good river, things like that, but not in this case. So additional work put on those folks to be able to secure this stuff and get it in place. So now we'll kind of bounce back out into the structure group that I kind of mentioned earlier. So they've been working in the entire 145 corridor, all the way around, back to the 38, and all the way up to the top to Dunton as well. So folks in this room, I'm sure, have seen some of those people out there on your property, have done some improvements for in case the fire does come down off the hill, whether it's vegetation removal in certain locations, getting some appliances, as we would call them, set up, a pump, a pumpkin to hold water, hoses, sprinklers, things like that. So it all kind of depends on where the property is in proximity to the fire and what the likelihood of that threat would be on what's all there. So there's been a lot of work done by those folks. That stuff's been mapped as well. That's going to be a product that can be utilized in the future also. So not as much work has to be put into that potentially the next time. So they've done a ton of work in there, and most recently the highest priority of structure has been in the Stoner subdivision in here with removing some of those fuels and things like that in there to help out if something were to come down this canyon. So one thing I missed that's actually super important that I better touch on right now. I don't know how I missed it because it was super important that we got done today. So right across from the hand line, super hard to see, probably looks pink from the audience, but we were able to connect all the way across the mesa from the top and punch a dozer down today all the way to tie into this hand line coming down from the other side. So we've got that part closed off too. So we kind of had to focus initially when this fire was moving down canyon through Stoner Creek with some primary strategic lines that were a little farther away. Sometimes that happens, and we needed to have something we knew we could work with. As soon as we got that stuff in play, kind of our plan forward is how can we make this smaller? If we can't go direct in here and put that, very specific fire's edge out, how are we going to do that? And that's how they did that. And that took a lot of work. There's folks that literally walked pretty much every one of these ridges in here trying to find somewhere to be able to connect that. We got intel from various landowners, ranchers, things like that. Hey, there's an old cow trail we used to push cows on. I mean, folks were out there ground truthing that kind of information, and that stuff can be super helpful for us on what's going to work. So that was a big win for us today to be able to punch that in also and lock some of this stuff off. So just kind of a big win out in the field today. So I'm going to briefly touch on the weather. I'll let the smart folks behind me talk specifics, but it has been a massive help to us out there, obviously. It stopped that forward progression of the fire. Is it going to put it out? Probably not. But it's been a massive help, and from the operations perspective, we're not anticipating, anything soon that's going to cause movement in here. Smoke impacts and things like that have some potential, but like I said, I'll let some of the what I'll call more intelligent people that don't hike ridges and just dig ditches, as I say, put it in fire lines. So they're extremely valuable to make stuff happen for us on the ground. So like I said, I'll be here after for specifics on the map over on the side. And thanks for everybody for being here.
Good evening, everybody. Scott Stearns, incident meteorologist here on the Stoner Mesa fire. So I work for the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, the National Weather Service, and when incidents have enough significance, not necessarily based on size, but complexity, et cetera. There's a whole bunch of stuff that goes into that. Oftentimes there's a meteorologist that's requested to give site-specific forecasts that are super important for planning purposes, which you'll hear about the fire behavior analyst talk next, or maybe one person after that, if I'm not mistaken. At any rate, and that's the primary purpose, or excuse me, that's the secondary purpose. The primary purpose is firefighter safety. So, it's transitioned into less of a fire weather threat and more of a kind of general all hazards threat with thunderstorm activity. And so that's one of the things that I'm keenly focused on here on the incident is supporting the firefighters in the field in terms of letting them know when there's precipitation, particularly storms, lightning activity, anything that would be a threat to normally fire activity, but also, their livelihood out there in the field, their safety. So it's a little bit about what I do, why I'm here. And with that, I'll get into the forecast. That's probably what you want to hear from me. So as we can look at the matrix here, I'll just briefly take an overview and say that anything in green is generally good. So that means it's favorable for fire operations, generally speaking, such that it's going to tamper fire activity. Yellow is kind of somewhere in between. It's like, okay, it's not horrible, it's not great. And then red is generally not so great, meaning that it could potentially lead to fire control issues, that kind of thing. So really the good news is there's a lot of green on here, right, over the next 6 days. The only thing that is red is that lightning potential. And so, it's not necessarily a big concern for, increasing fire activity or anything related specifically to the Stoner Mesa fire since it's already established, but it's more related to, what the sheriff spoke about earlier, initial attack, new fire starts, that kind of thing. But the good news is, at least up at 10,000 feet, which is, roughly the top of Taylor Mesa, just a little bit lower than that elevation, we've got really good conditions in terms of I'd call it anti-fire weather conditions if you want to think of it that way. But essentially, we don't have any strong winds. We don't have high temperatures, and we don't have low relative humidities either. So temperatures over the course of the next few days are roughly on the Mesa top there in the low 60s, maybe even upper 50s for maximum daytime temperatures, it looks like. We've got RHs, our relative humidities, that is, that are really only going to get down to like 50, 60% even. And the concerning relative humidities, around here are something on the order of, getting below 30%. But really, to be honest with you, for the best, not best, but the most significant fire activity is below 15%. So we're a long ways from that, obviously. And, we've got this monsoonal high pressure system that's in place right over the Four Corners region that you all are very familiar with down here if you've been here for any amount of time. And it was a little bit late getting here, obviously, this year. But now that it's set in, that moisture is continuing to kind of move into the area. We've kind of hit kind of a steady state, I guess I'll call it, over the next 2 or 3 days with that moisture that's worked in. And now we're kind of recycling it, is sometimes what it's called, the meteorologists call it. And essentially, we've got rain that's fell on the ground, and that's going to essentially prime the pump so that we're able to get the additional storms that move over are more efficient at producing additional rainfall. So, it's kind of a positive feedback process in that regard. Of course, the struggle, was to get the precip here to begin with. But now that it's here, we're looking at decent amounts of precipitation, generally anything over about 1/10 of an inch of accumulation any given day is something that we call a wetting rain in terms of fire operations and such. And so that's super favorable if we can get wetting rain within the course of a day. And you can see over the next 3 days, we are expecting more than wetting rain, close to, 1/2 inch just in the next couple days combined, with additional 1/4 inch potentially as we get into Wednesday time frame, and maybe even some lingering precipitation after that. At some point, as we get into next weekend and beyond, it looks like maybe we will dry back out, but it's not going to be as dry as it was, even a couple weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, when the team came in and when fire activity was higher than it is now. So with that in mind, things are certainly positive for the next few days. And then, like I said, we do start to see things dry out. But then, it's not going to be to the level, at least in the near future, as to what we saw before. So, normally I have more detail with these community meetings, or the wind's going to change and it's going to do this and that and the other thing, and the fire potentially could spread this way. But honestly, we're as operations mentioned, we're not really in that status right now with this fire, because we've got that good monsoonal moisture. So with that in mind, I'm happy to answer any questions. I can actually bring good news for once. It doesn't happen very often, but so I'm happy to answer any questions afterwards, and that's all I've got. Thanks.
Hey, I'm Andrew Schauer. I'm the Air Resource Advisor on the fire, and that's just a long way of saying that I look at air quality and specifically how the smoke from the fire is impacting kind of multiple scales. So I pulled up this map with a link up there on the upper right if anyone's interested. This updates constantly, 24 hours a day, and it's showing current air quality conditions. It goes across the whole country, but I just snipped a picture of the state of Colorado. And each little green circle here represents an air monitor. They'll change colors as the air quality changes. So as you see, I took this snapshot this morning, and this little red dot, that's a monitor that we set up right in Stoner, which has been hit hardest. I'll talk about that in just a second. But you'll notice there's a lot of green across the state, which is what we like to see. So it was nice of Scott to turn the faucet back on and get some moisture going, and we're seeing the benefits there of reduced smoke output from multiple fires in the state. Each one of these blue boxes represents a 24-hour smoke outlook that either myself or another air resource advisor has put together. They're all publicly available. You may have seen them hanging up on the sandwich boards around town, but it just gives a little bit more detailed information and some nuance about what's going on with current conditions. You'll see we have down here in our neck of the woods, this little icon represents the Stoner Mesa fire. There's two different boxes, and we've kind of taken this approach of looking at the broader impacts as well as the areas closer immediately surrounding the fire, like Dolores and Stoner and Rico. For a while now, in this big box, we've been seeing mostly green, some periods of yellow, generally good conditions, with a lot more variability in this small box. So if we could look at the next slide, we'll zoom in, talk about that a little more. This was a picture I took up on 38 back on Thursday, and you see this big plume of smoke when things were hot and dry and more active. And then this was a picture that I took from just across the valley yesterday, and the arrow's pointing at what we were dealing with smoke. So we've already seen the positive effects of getting some moisture on the fire. A lot less smoke production now than what we were seeing even 3 or 4 days ago, which is really good. The areas that are still going to be facing some concern, even as we're getting moisture, is everything that's just down this Stoner Creek drainage. You know, Stoner is right at the bottom of that, at the mouth. And what happens is, while this fire is sort of smoldering in there, the smoke doesn't have enough energy to lift up and out of the canyon and get transported farther away. So it's not producing as much smoke, but everything that does get produced lifts up a little bit, and then it just settles in overnight and then flows down canyon. So Stoner is the first place to pick that up. When the fire is making a little more smoke, it was making it down to Dolores down here. Not really expecting that as long as these afternoon showers continue to reduce smoke output. But I think Stoner is going to continue to see those higher concentrations overnight and in early morning. So we could flip to the next one here. I don't think you needed to have an expert come up here and tell you that it's been smoky at night. We are paying close attention, trying to anticipate what's going to happen for the next couple days, and it's looking good. But, you know, I know before I was in this role, I was paying attention to the air quality things, and I was always like, this is great information, but what do I do with that? And there are some really good resources out there. You know, one easy thing that you can do if you have air conditioning is just close your windows and turn on your AC at night. Those air conditioners have a filter, and they're pulling out the fine particulates that are causing health issues. If you don't have air conditioning at your house, I have some handouts there with some directions on how to make a simple DIY air filter that all you need is a box fan and a filter for like a furnace. I have a bunch of handouts there that I'm happy to talk afterwards. That's all I got for now. I'll be hanging out in the back if you need anything else.
Good evening. Nick Ostrom, Fire Behavior Analyst for Rocky Mountain Complex Incident Management Team 1. So I got your fire behavior update and probable fire activity forecast. Let's jump to it here. A couple weeks ago when this fire was really rocking and rolling, we had above average temperatures, drought conditions, and wind from the west. That's what drove this fire this way. And as our operations chief explained, this country up here, this is what I call natural barriers. Very rocky cliffs, just won't catch on fire. There's not much fuels. There's a riparian zone and also the stream. The creek itself held the fire there. So basically the fire ran out of fuels from moving to the north. It did throw some spot fires out here as that extreme fire behavior was really moving and causing torching and throwing those embers out there. And what those embers landed in patches of the mixed conifer, the alpine trees of spruce and fir, and landed in the heavy deaden down in there and burned that up. It burned to the edges of those patches of trees, and it ran out of fuel. Barren ground, there's a lot of rocks around there. There's also areas of grass that just was not available. The live fuel moisture was up, it just wouldn't burn. So that's why we got spot fires there. It also came around the horn. In that area, we had roads, mining roads, logging roads, elk hunting trails that broke up that continuity of the surface fuels. So there, the fire stopped as well. Luckily, here this rain, just got a report from Division Alpha. They're receiving good precipitation up there. So this fire that's been parked for a couple weeks, just smoldering away, is receiving that moisture, and it's probably helping lock this in even more and providing pretty much a lot more certainty that we're not going to see this fire want to move to the north or move to the east. So confidence, getting quite a bit of confidence now that this fire, the natural barriers are holding this fire from moving anymore. Coming down through the southern areas of the fire, all this black line, tough conditions. As our operations chief talked about, our firefighters out there working in very dense forest. That mixed con, spruce, fir, those is growing right next to each other. The crowns are just touching each other, limbs all the way to the ground. And we have this ground fire. In this kind of fuel type, it's real common to have fire that burns underground. A lot of organic matter, and it's on the ground. And when it gets an opportunity to poke up, it'll grab those low-hanging branches on those spruce trees and want to climb up into the trees, and they go from crown to crown to crown. But our firefighters are out there working hard, and they've been very strategic on where they put their lines, because in this area, there's been quite a few hazardous fuels treatments that mechanical thinning, timber harvesting, and prescribed fire. And what that's done is allow these firefighters these areas where the crowns are spaced apart. It's removed some of the limbs, the ladder fuels from the ground, and the prescribed fires removes a lot of that dead material on the ground. So spot fires and surface fire, it can't develop. So lots of good work here. That's looking pretty good. Also with that opening up the crown spacing, this moisture that we're receiving today is reaching the ground and preventing really this fire from being able to move to the south by spot fires. So that's helping us out quite a bit there. And then the most interesting part for the fire for me here in Stoner Creek itself, it's pretty interesting because, so we've been talking a lot about the fire up here on the mesa. It's anywhere from 9,500 to 11,000 feet elevation. That's high up there. It's cold, it's damp, but down there's 2,000 to 3,000 vertical feet difference from the mesa top to the bottom of the canyon here in Stoner Creek. So basically, as it's cold and damp up here, down here in the creek bottom, it's a climate much like Dolores. So we are seeing temperatures, those higher temperatures that Dolores would be having, the lower relative humidities. So the fire likes that. And with the warmer temperatures, we got a vegetation change. So up here where the fire is burning, and this is the interesting part to me, where the fire is burning and all this heavy dead and down that's on the ground, and the conifer, the mixed con, the short needle, spruce and firs. Down here, we have a fire adapted ecosystem, ponderosa pine, gamble oak, and grass. So much more fire activity taking place. We've been seeing uphill runs because fire loves to run uphill. And then when it gets to the top, gravity says go back down, and fire says, okay, I'll go back down and run back up. And so that's been going on. That's been progressing this fire to the south, down canyon. And as so, even through this moisture, and with the moisture's moderated that activity the last couple of days, but I do expect here, after a while, after a few days of sunshine, warmer temperatures, because now we're dealing with pine needles, the leaf from the gamble oak. Instead of big, heavy dead downs, we got those finer fuels. They will dry out, and we'll probably see a little bit more activity here. But that's in a while from now. One thing that's in our favor is that it's fall time. So we have a transition of season here. We're looking at longer nights, cooler temperatures during the day, cooler temperatures at night. Also seeing much more higher RHs during the day, RHs at night. So even though we might be seeing activity and pretty good at fire behavior activity, the burn periods are going to be shorter throughout the day and should be significantly less growth as time goes on. Each day should be just less and less burn period, less growth. So overall, pretty moderate fire activity right now. The rain's really helped us out. In a few days, we should start seeing a little bit of activity in here, but it won't be anything like it's been a couple weeks ago with record high temperatures and very low RHs and wind. So with that, I'll be around to answer any questions. Thanks.
Who's happy to see the rain? Yeah, us too. Good evening, everyone. My name is Justin Conrad. I'm the incident commander for Rocky Mountain Area Team 1. So what we do, we're a team of about 75 to about 130 people, and we travel around the country during the summer times, and we come to small communities just like this, small communities just like Stoner, and we get set up and we fight fire for 2 weeks in your guys' community. So where I'm going with that is I would like to say thank you to all the supporters throughout all the communities, people that are online, Cortez, Rico, Stoner. Your support has been amazing to us while we've been here, and we greatly appreciate it. So, preset moving in. Our team is reaching the end of our time here. Tuesday will be our last shift, and we'll be transitioning command to your local Type 3 team, San Juan Team 8. So that transfer command will happen at 2000 on Tuesday, and they'll take the fire over at that time. So, just the amount of community support that we've received from all of you has just been really amazing. And just wanted to say thank you for the time that we've had here and being able to work with all of you. The fire chiefs, the county sheriffs, the emergency managers. You got a lot of good people here that you all get to work with. So thank you. All right, guys. Have a good night.
Thanks, Justin. So for those of you online, we'll be ending the live stream here in a moment, but know our staff is still available, so if you still have questions, you can send that again through direct messaging or the email address. For those of you in the room, we have some tables back here that have a bunch of resources on it, ways to stay informed, keep in touch with the fire information. And when we're done, you'll see a number of maps spread throughout the room. Come find any of us in dark shirts. We'll be available to answer any questions you have. So again, thank you so much for coming tonight. And with that, we'll end our meeting.